Daniel, the Past Life Regressionist, thank you so much for being on the Woo Report. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me, Laura.
Everyone's going to be like, who is this guy? No, truly, I'm so pumped that you're here because Past Lives is a fan favorite. And we have not gone into it. I have not gotten granular about this subject at all yet. So I can't wait to ask you 1 million questions and get into details about what the heck is a past life, what is a past life regression, and all the things. So.
Can I say one thing first?
Please do.
So for the audience,
The reason why I did that voice.
because Laura asked me if I was going to use my podcast voice, and I said, no.
But I guess I did for a minute, but rule of 3, so no longer will I talk like this.
Okay, I got it out of my system. We're good.
Daniel also has a podcast called Timeless Spirituality. And if you are interested to go deep dive into past life regression and beyond, that's your spot. That's where you're going to head over to. But truly, how does this feel right now, Daniel? I feel like the tables have turned because we did a past life regression a couple weeks ago. And it's like, when you are doing a past life regression, like you are so vulnerable. You are in the hot seat. And you're asking me all of these very intimate, detailed questions about like my memories from my childhood. And here we are now. I'm going to ask you all the questions. Are you ready?
Yeah, I guess I wasn't taking that into consideration. But okay, yeah. Karma, right? You get back what you...
Yes.
So, okay.
Another topic we're going to get into. Okay.
I'm in.
All right, Daniel. What is a past life?
A past life, I guess the conventional understanding would be it's a life that you lived before the one that you're living now, or lives before what you're living now. And while I like to refer to them as past lives, I also think that we're viewing it through a linear time lens there. Now, so I mean, not to get too into the whole concept of time, but the question then becomes, is time linear or is it something else? Is it happening all at once? Is it a circle? Is it layered? And if it's all happening at once, how could it be a past life? So when we say past life, I guess what we're referring to is a life that happened before this one in a linear sense.
Ooh, yes. We can really get into the quantum field, but that is definitely for another episode. All right. So how many past lives have we had?
I mean, that's also, I think, where that question comes in about time and the nature of time. Is it linear?
So when it's linear for us right now in this moment, in 2025 on the Woo Report, what is like a general, like people have had what? 100 lives, 1 life, 10 lives, 1,000 lives. What are we looking at here?
My feeling is that it's probably in the hundreds or even possibly thousands, but I don't think there's any metric to really gauge how many lives any given person has or how you even measure it. And I mean, I've heard people say, oh yeah, 35,000 lives and then you're done. Well, I don't know. Also, how does anyone know that? But I think it's probably in the hundreds or into the thousands. I think it's just about what you're here to learn, how long it takes you to learn that lesson, whatever it may be, how much you accomplish, how long it takes you to accomplish, how long you're stuck in one place. Can you accomplish 10 lives worth of growth in one life, or is it going to take you 100 lives to take that 10 lives worth of growth?
And so, the idea or the theory being that we're all here to learn and grow, and we have lessons that we're learning in each life.
Exactly.
And we're just going to keep learning and growing. We're going to come back and do it again and again until we learn all those lessons and that we're like Buddha frequency. I mean, is it the Buddhist religion that it's reincarnation? Is that like where this all originated? Or what is the percentage of the population that subscribes to this, would you say?
Again, that it's hard for me to give you a concrete number for that, but I will say that I mean, I've been a practitioner now since 2016, and it has been shocking to me how many people are actually on board with past lives. And not just because I happen to work in that space, so naturally I'm going to talk to a lot of people who believe in these types of things, but it's more so when I'm outside of my profession and interacting with people, and I say, oh yeah, I'm a past life regressionist. Sometimes I get that look of like, huh? You do what? But other times it's, yeah, okay, let's talk about it. Then when I was telling friends what I was doing, there were friends who I was just shocked that they were on board with past lives. So I think that the number may be higher than what we think. I don't know if we're at a tipping point where it's over 50% of the population, but I think it varies around the world also based off of culture. And just like you were saying, in places like Southeast Asia, I think they're more on board with it because of the religious connotations. I think it's something that's picking up steam.
When I was growing up, I remember like learning here and there about reincarnation. And I felt like when I was a kid, what I got was that we were going to be a human and then we were going to be like a butterfly or an animal. And that was hard for me to wrap my head around. And I'm not saying that that's not even the case now. Like I don't have like a firm belief on whether or not that's the case. I do believe that we have past lives in human form, at least. All right. So given that you are a believer that we have past lives, what do you think happens when we die?
I don't think it's a one size fits all. I think it depends on your circumstances. I think it depends on the way you died. And when I say that, I mean, if you died in a horrific fashion, something that may have been unexpected because, look, I'm someone who personally believes that the universe, while vastly more complex than anything I could ever possibly comprehend, I think it's perfectly imperfect. So I think that sometimes there are curveballs that are thrown because I do believe that we come in basically knowing the trajectory of the way our lives are going to go, but sometimes something happens where it doesn't quite go that way. And I think in that respect, if you die in just like I said, a sudden and horrific way where it wasn't expected, I think you may linger a bit longer. And I don't know how long or what that looks like, if it's what we would consider to be lifetimes, or if it's the blink of an eye, or if it's where you're just meandering through an in-between, whatever that may be. But I think in that set of circumstances, you hang around a bit longer. But if I were to generalize it, I think what you do is you hang around for what we may be or perceive to be a few moments or a few minutes. Because when I lead someone through a past life regression, we revisit the moment of the death 95% of the time. And a lot of people hang out and are looking down at their body for a couple minutes and just observing the space, and then they go up, or something comes and gets them and pulls them up. But whatever it is, it's this upward motion to whatever comes next. And whether that be entering through the gates of heaven, or a review place or review period, meaning going through the review process of your life, I think it's about looking back and really just, I don't want to say scrutinizing, but I will use the word judgment, but in a different way. Not the judgment of, oh, you did bad, now you're going to hell. I think it's
not in a shame and guilt way. Yeah. Just
exactly.
like a review.
It's about judging your actions, your own actions. And maybe there are others that are helping you see things, but ultimately I don't think it's a tribunal or a jury that says like, okay, you're going to be punished for this. It's, what did you learn? How could you have done things differently? And how will you do things in a different way once you continue to learn this lesson? And once that happens, I think that there is a process of basically preparation for the next life, whatever that may be, learning what you need to learn about that life and the circumstances, kind of setting the foundation for how it's going to look, whether that's meeting up with your translucent buddies on the other side and saying, oh, we're going to meet up when we're 21 and oh, you're going to be a dick and you're going to be sweet, but I'm still going to hate you anyways, because that's just who I'm going to be in that life. But I'm still going to love you on the grander level anyways. So I think it's that place of preparation for the next life. But I also think that there can be a resting period, whatever that may be. I think there may be a time when you get to just kind of frolic among the hills on the other side, just chilling and hanging out. But I think there also may be some chaos and disarray over there, depending on how seamless that transition may be and what it looks like. So I just still, I don't think it's this is the way that it is. I think there are many ways that it can be.
When you were talking about our buddies up there, would you define our buddies that we come back maybe and reincarnate with as a soul family? Or have you ever used that term soul family?
I've used it before, but I think it's too black and white because, one, I don't believe that, again, with my belief that time is not linear, I don't believe that we're just in one body at one time. I also believe that it's possible that, and I know that there's a concept of almost like a soul splitting, where if you're in two bodies at once, that means that, oh, your soul like splintered off and you're having two different experiences because your soul split. I don't necessarily believe that's the case. I think that you can be in another life because time isn't linear and never interact with yourself. But I also bring that up because if there are soul families, and I put that in quotes, I think the conventional understanding is that there's like 10 to 20 individuals that you go through everything with, or 10 to 30, or whatever that number may be.
Webbed out.
Exactly.
A webbed out group.
But how does that take into consideration all the variables? And like I was talking about, the things that may happen along the way that shifts the trajectory of the life. Now, it could very well all be taken into consideration because, again, stupid human brain that I have can't comprehend that. But I believe that there are individuals that we encounter many times. But I think that while I believe in non-duality, I also believe in duality. So I believe that everyone is here on their own path and having their own experience. Yes, we may be all one at once, but I believe we're still individuals, that the two can be true at once. So with regards to soul families, I think the traditional definition just may be a little too limited because it's looking at one life, one set of circumstances, and not taking anything else into consideration. But yes, I do believe that there are individuals who we encounter many times across our travels.
And so the idea then would be, when we are, after we die and we're forming our plan for this next life, we're reincarnating with some of the same souls that we have seen in previous lives. And then my question for you is, does that have to do with karma? And what is karma? And how does it apply into our past lives?
So when you say, does that have to do with karma? Do you mean, how does that have to do with
karmic relationships?
Like making up for what you may have done and how to balance circumstances out?
Yes.
I think it factors heavily into it. I don't think karma is necessarily eye for an eye, where I killed you in one life, so you kill me in the next life. I think that oftentimes karma may be replaying out, we'll just say, the victim and perpetrator role, but it's not necessarily switching all the time. It may be that the same person may be in the victim role and the other person may be the perpetrator, because it's about the victim finally saying no more. And when I say victim, I mean just something as simple as a power imbalance in a friendship. And so not, it's nothing abusive, but just someone always seems to have the upper hand because the other person is allowing themselves to be steamrolled until that person finally says, no, I deserve more. I'm going to stand up for myself. And therefore they have completed, we'll just call it that karmic contract of empowerment or whatever the circumstance may be.
No, I love that. I want to get into the past life regression and first start with, why do people come to you?
I mean, first off, just curiosity. I think a lot of people on me are just curious. Have I lived before? Another reason is addressing the deeper issues that you can't get a conventional explanation for. We'll use a relationship as an example. For some reason, you just can't tear yourself away from this person. You know that they're no good for you, but you can't, you feel so drawn for one reason or another. So someone may come for past life regression and see that, oh, it's because we've been caught in this dynamic that I'm just addicted to. And still, like, it's about stepping out or maybe even stepping into, where we've been doing the same thing for so long and it hasn't been working. But if we make this change, it will work. Although that's more rare that I see that. It's
The
usually,
change.
yeah, we're supposed to work through this as opposed to like, I'm supposed to leave this, but it does happen.
Oh, that's interesting. I have a person in mind right now, not for me, like a friend who's been with this relationship that we were talking about this morning. And I was like, maybe you need a past life regression to figure out why you can't like rid yourself of this.
Can't hurt.
But maybe they need to work it out also.
Maybe. It's entirely possible.
Yeah.
But I think that's also what can come of it in that situation if it is about working it out. It's about seeing the dynamic from a different, we'll call it a different vantage point. In a past life regression, here's what we do. First, we talk for a while because I need to understand who you are in this life. I need to understand the patterns going on in the here and now because you are my eyes and ears in the session. So when we get to the actual regression part, I am never saying to you, Laura, you were the queen of Portugal in 1736. I don't know if they had a monarchy then. Or, you were X, Y, or Z. You are always the one who's reporting to me what you are seeing and experiencing because we use hypnosis to put you in that space where you can access that information.
Mm-hmm.
But based off of what you've told me in our pre-session about the patterns of this life, then I'm able to say, okay, I think we should explore this a little bit more because you brought up how you had this issue with public speaking or fear of commitment, whatever it may be. So it kind of sets the framework. So when I said that I'm still not 100% confident that they're real, so I will never write off the possibility that it is just our subconscious projecting something more tangible for us to understand in a different way, because we can see it through a third person perspective, if you will, where it's easier to see it happening through a past life because it's still you, but it may not be as intense because it's you, but not you. So you're almost able to look at it more impartially. With that said, I still believe it's a past life. So it gives you that opportunity still to see it and maybe not judge yourself as harshly because you're almost judging the actions of another version of you or analyzing the actions of another version of you.
When you talk about this, it makes me think of Many Lives, Many Masters, which I know I've mentioned many times on this podcast. In that book, in sessions, when Dr. Brian Weiss was regressing Catherine, she was coming up with not only past lives in like Egypt and whatever, 1700s, but she was pulling details from Egypt in the 1700s, which she's in her 20s and she never studied Egypt and has never been there. And like the detail part was like, oh my gosh, to me, that was so impressive that there was real information in there. So it's like, I know you're like, it's hard to trust yourself when you are like, is this my imagination? Is this real? Is this not real? But in that situation, when there's actual facts, it's hard to deny.
Well,
right?
Yeah, yes, but still in that situation, I'm going to default to, I believe that was a past life experience. And the reason why she was able to acquire that information is because she was there.
Right.
It's almost, it's like weird to say, yeah, well, the simplest explanation is the right one. Yeah, the simplest explanation is that she lived a past life in Egypt. Therefore, she's able to bring this information forward. Totally normal in my world. But
right. Harder for other people to grasp that.
So, but here's the additional layer to it, because I've had people who, like, I'll use the example of, let's just say, have you ever been to Lincoln, Nebraska?
No.
Or Omaha, Nebraska?
I've driven through Nebraska. I don't know where I was though.
Okay. Have you been in Iowa City, Iowa?
No.
Okay. So let's say that you went to a past life and you saw Iowa City, Iowa in the, let's say 1911. And you drove up to your house. You described it perfectly. You said it's on 1234 Maple Lane. The house is brick. There's a tree out front. There's a little flower bed over here. But you're describing it perfectly. And then you go into the house and you tell me about the experience that you were having with your wife. And, oh, it's rough here. The kids, I love them, but they're a pain in the ass. Or they're little angels. I could do better raising the children. And you go through that experience about talking about the life. Well, you could come back and you can go do the research and you can find 1234 Maple Lane in Iowa City, Iowa. And you can look at that house in a picture from, let's just say 2015, when Google Earth was going by or whatever it was. And the house, although it's a little more weathered and you can tell that it's over 100 years old at that point, it is still the same house at 1234 Maple Lane. While I want to say with 100% conviction that that is proof that that is a past life of yours and that was real, to me, all that really proves is that you're tapping into something. Sure. Could you nail 1234 Maple Lane and it looks exactly the same way? Maybe. But I mean, that's a stretch. But for you to nail that level of detail, again, maybe it comes back to you are tapping into that oneness, and that what you really needed to see was the experience of that person and their family life, because it most closely resembles the life that you have now in a more tangible way, for you to take away what needs to be done and how you can improve upon those dynamics. I'm inclined to, again, believe that it is a past life, but I wouldn't go as far to say that that is 100% proof of it being your past life, because I think it is just proof that we have the ability to tap into something else.
Okay. So this ability to tap into something else. So people would come to you, or do come to you, because emotionally, physically, they want something to heal. They want to heal something. And so tell me a little bit about that.
I mean, it seems so conventional, but I've seen it happen so many times. It's people who have a fear of water. When they say, I can't even go in a swimming pool. I'm so afraid of that. I mean, a shower's okay, but I'm so afraid to go into a body of water. There's just something that comes over me. And when we go back, we usually see that you drowned in one fashion or another, whether that be falling off of a boat, being pushed off of a boat, just drowning by happenstance, whatever it may be. There was something that happened that you brought that fear with you into this life. So when we go and see it and then we release it, I can't tell you how many of those people have said to me after, I went in the ocean, I went in a pool, I went in a jacuzzi. It was amazing. So cool. I put my head under the water. So I think it's by the acknowledgement and still understanding, and then going through that release process and what we would deem or call the quantum in that space that we can't necessarily see. There is something that happens that I just don't think that we can fully explain. And I don't know how it happens, but it happens. Now, if I'm going to play devil's advocate here, which I think is
politically correct.
Right. Well, I think it's the most responsible thing to do, which, by the way, is a lesson I'm working on in this lifetime, is responsibility. That's neither here nor there right now, although we can go there if you want. I'm not going to sit here also and tell you that it's not just a placebo effect, that it's not going through that process of tricking yourself into thinking that, oh, I had this horrific thing in a past life, and now I'm able to do this because I acknowledge it. I don't believe it's that. But I have to allow for the room of possibility, because I think that that's the right thing to do. So, but here's the thing, even if it is just a placebo effect that's happening, who cares? Who cares?
Totally.
If you're able to go in that body of water or that pool and you can live a more fulfilling life and you're not hurting anyone, awesome.
I love that. And also, when you do a session with you, it's not nothing. It is a 4-hour sit down where it's therapy. Not only is it therapy, but you, and I don't know whether this is normal for practitioners to do, but you also look at people's astrology, look at their chart. So when you get into kind of like the 4-hour session, obviously I was in one, so I know it, but walk us through what that looks like and if the person gave you their astrology chart.
Astrology is not part of the process. That's something that I've incorporated into it, because let's just say you go to conventional therapy. Something I've been in conventional therapy for a very long time. I also work with a shadow work practitioner who's also an astrologer. And the difference between those sessions is that the therapist she's limited to what I can provide her with. I mean, sure, she can use her intuition to pick up on certain things and ask questions to expand the scope. But she really is limited only by what I provide her. And, whether that's through my own choice of not saying anything or because I'm simply not aware of something. Whereas when the shadow work coach with the astrologer, or who's the astrologer, factors that in, she's able to see things in my chart and what's going on at the sky at that moment and know the right questions to ask based off of what's going on. So I feel that astrology helps inform me of a lot of the right questions to ask, but also to not treat it as an absolute, because you are going to know your experience better than anyone else. And I don't think that any illustration of the stars can tell you your experience better than you can. Like, you are still my most trusted ally in there, and your experience is the most valid because it's your experience. But still, it helps inform me of some of the right questions to ask while still not making the assumptions that this is the way that it is. But I think that it can kind of ease you into the process because it's, oh, okay, we're already starting. Like, I'm already starting to feel this, feeling. I think that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, because there's some sort of baseline around. And if you don't know astrology, which I really don't know astrology, I really feel like it's overwhelming. But, you have all the planets at the time you were born, and they are in a certain house. And when they're in a certain house, it means something about your personality or how you're showing up in the world or how maybe you make decisions, right? Would that be right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. And so you did it. So the way that my session worked is we started by looking at my chart against your chart. So you had a baseline for yourself.
Okay. So with that, yeah, that's another part yeah.
Is that a secret?
Well, I mean, it's not a secret. I bring it up with a lot of people.
Yeah.
If I'm seeing certain aspects at play, and an aspect being astrology is all geometry. It's the way that things line up with each other. And a lot of times it can also give me an idea of where a session may be going based off of my chart. Because there's this thing called synastry in astrology where you put two charts on top of each other. A lot of people think that's solely about romantic relationships and how you interact with your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, girlfriend, so on and so forth. But synastry it's all dynamics that you have. It's with your kids, with your friends, with your parents, with your coworkers.
Like CoStar. Have you ever used the CoStar app?
Yeah.
It's interesting to see which parts you're compatible on and which parts you're not.
Exactly. And oftentimes I look what my sun is doing, and I use like the literal translation of where is my sun shining a light on? And it's not to say that I'm going to lead the session in that way or have this set outcome of, oh, because my sun is hitting this planet, this is what it's going to be. But it seems to happen that way a lot. So oftentimes it can also kind of prepare me for, is this going to be a deep session? Because I think a past life regression is exactly what you need it to be. I don't think it's ever what you want it to be. But sometimes people do need a light session. And a light session just being one where there aren't tears. Sometimes people need the deepest cathartic release that they have ever had before. And those can be very intense sessions. But I also don't believe that bona fide healing comes in anything less than going deep. And that's not to say that you're not going to get a lot if you don't go that deep. Because again, I think it's what you need. Sometimes you may not just be ready for it, or it may not be the right day. It may be that you have something else that's going to be coming up that week that's going to require your attention. So something knows that you just can't go there that day. And that's okay. But it can often inform me, get ready, because this is going to be one of those sessions where it's going to be heavy. You're going to hear some shit today.
When you think about doing a past life regression, you're like, okay, well, we're going to focus on our past lives. But the point of seeing these past lives is how to better handle your life right now. And so we're talking for a long time. We're looking at my chart. We talk about what my life was like, what my life has been like up until this point, highlighting all of like the scary times, the dark times, like all the things that could be conflicts that maybe still are holding on to me now.
Mhm.
And then you regress me into a place and you kind of guide me to see something, anything. And it's trusting myself to tell you what I'm seeing instead of, and that part's hard for me.
It's okay. It's hard for me too.
Okay. Thank you for saying that. It's like, it's like hard to be like, well, I don't know what it looks like a hat. Like, it looks like an ultrasound in there. When you close your eyes, when you first close your eyes and you're like trying to see through your third eye, it's like, I don't know if anybody agrees with me, but can you give me validation on this? It like looks like,
I'm trying to picture what it's like to be in an ultrasound. Do it.
Not to be in an ultrasound, like, an ultrasound of like a baby, the black and white, like grainy picture of the baby.
I'm sorry, I can't validate that. I've never had that experience before. But hey, to each his own.
No, you've seen one. You've seen an ultrasound picture before.
Oh yeah, that. But I've never had that when I've gone into that space. But hey, like I said, it happens however it happens for people.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I feel like that's what happens when I close my eyes sometimes to try and meditate. It's like, it looks like an ultrasound. It's like black and white and grainy and like there's some like shapes, but I can't really make a whole lot out.
I don't think that your session was meant to be conventional. I think that it was one of those where, and again, like, I think if you really think about it right now, if you think about what was coming up at the beginning, just also for everyone, there was nothing scandalous. I'm just going to say that right off the bat, but because it's Laura's session, I want to.
You can bring up anything. I open book here. This is like a teaching moment for me and for everyone.
So one of the things is, I always tell everyone at the beginning, just trust the process and trust whatever comes through, no matter how absurd it may be. And even if it doesn't make sense, trust it, because everything will make sense at the end. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we talked about this after your session, but if you bookend it, and if you think about what you were seeing at the very beginning and what you were seeing at the end, you were seeing the same thing. It was just appearing in a different form. If you remember how it was, well, you said I could say it, right?
Yeah, go ahead. Remind me.
At the beginning,
like, what happened?
At the beginning, you were seeing shapes. Mm-hmm. And at the end, you were seeing patterns through numbers. Mm-hmm. So I can see that as being almost the bookends there, where there is something mathematical at the beginning that you may not understand, and maybe I'm even making a stretch here, but you were also seeing patterns. Remember, because math or geometry is math. Numbers are math. It's all math. It was coming in a different form. And I remember you even talking about certain shapes, even if it wasn't right on the nose, you were being very specific about certain shapes with what you were experiencing at the end. So, and maybe it's a stretch, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it's to show there is something here for you to really take into consideration, something that may not be as important to me, because I don't think I personally experienced that in any of my regressions. Seeing those shapes, I've seen different things.
Yeah, right.
But that was kind of what was a big part of the theme for you, was seeing patterns. And, it's even something you're doing with the show right now, through these conversations with many different people who are either practitioners in their field or just people who are interested. You are gaining experience through pattern recognition of talking with different individuals, and to give you a fuller picture of the way that things may very well be, at least through the eyes of Laura in our universe. Because I also don't know if the universe is objective or subjective. I think it's probably objective in many respects, but we can do another episode on that. But
the responsibility, you are being responsible.
Oh, you have no idea. I gotta lay the fuck off sometimes. Just be like, just say it's okay. It's okay for you to say that this is your experience. What?
It's okay to be also like 99% sure. Like, you can just be like, I'm 99% sure. And like, that leaves like,
Yeah.
the 1%.
Well, I think that a lot of it is also the trap that I found myself falling into when I came around to a lot of these things, because I think I started to treat things as absolutes when they weren't. So I accept full responsibility for that. That's not on any of the people that I talk to or those who treated things as absolutes that I then treated as absolutes as well, because still, like, you are your own authority and everything is ultimately your responsibility for how you put things out there into the world. So I just never want to be the person that does that to someone else, because someone listening to your podcast right now may not really know anything about past lives, but they may hear Daniel, the Past Life Regressionist. By the way, I lucked out getting that handle. Who would have thought I'd get the Past Life Regressionist? Everyone go check me out, thepastliferegressionist.com, or on Instagram, the Past Life Regressionist. So by having that name, I may be looked at as an authority. Therefore, authority is someone who, should know a lot about this stuff.
Yeah.
And then someone may parrot those things, and it may help them form the basis of their own cosmology or their own belief system. And I think belief systems are I don't even like to use the word sacred, but in this circumstance, I will. I think they are very sacred things for every individual. So I think it's important to treat them with respect and to be very delicate with someone else's belief system. So that's why I want to come at this place of, here's the way that I think that it is. I don't know that it is. So you run with it. You make your own informed decision about the way that you believe the world is based off the information that you're gathering. So with all that, past life regression. Yeah. I don't.
Here we go.
Right.
Backtrack.
So, while your session isn't one that I would deem to be a deeply emotional one or cathartic one, I believe it was exactly what you needed. But like you also told me, you were very drained after your session.
I was, yeah.
I believe that that's the case because I believe that you were tapping into something, something beyond what is normal in a past life regression, with the pattern recognition that was coming forward to you, that you were onto something. And I think we even talked about this at the end of your session, but there were things that I was throwing out that I wasn't trying to confuse you, but I was almost testing that recognition and seeing if I'm like, there's no way she's going to catch on to this because she's there, and if it comes forward, she gets it, then I think she's onto something here. And you followed that format.
I want to talk for a minute about the 3D. Okay. Right now our practical feet on the ground moments, and when we meet people that maybe we've met before, because I feel like this is something that is really relatable. You meet somebody and you're like, oh, I just feel like I've known them. I feel like I know them. One of them came up as a twin in my past life when I was with you, my friend Natalia. So when we did it, I saw myself as like a young girl with red shoes on, and I had a twin, and it was Natalia. And Natalia and I, we met and fell in love. We realized we lived across from each other in all of Los Angeles. We lived in houses right across from each other. We're not family, but I feel like she's my sister. So I know I'm explaining it how I feel, but do you see this? Do you see this happen in your sessions?
Oh yeah. And I mean, I personally believe it is related to past lives. Yeah, it's that recognition, but I wouldn't always equate the ferocity or how deep it feels with an expectation of how it should be. Because I think that's also a lot of what I see with people who come to me is that but I feel such a connection with this person every time the second that I met. Oh, but they're abusive. Oh, but the connection, it's there. And I went to a psychic and they said that we were this, we were so on and so forth.
But even in an abusive relationship, couldn't it be a recognition from a past life?
Oh yeah, that's exact. I mean, yeah, that's probably a better way of saying it. I think it is a recognition, but I think it's always important to focus on the here and now in this life. And we can acknowledge that there is a recognition there, but whoever that person is in this life, that goes both ways also. Where if you were to see someone in your past life who did something horrific to you, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen this time or that they're even a bad person this time. The past is the past. Just simply put, it's almost to say that I believe that every life is a clean slate. Now, it doesn't erase what we've done in other lives, but I think that's kind of where karma comes in order for us to balance out those actions in one way or another. But it's cool to have that recognition. And
Yes.
it's so cool to feel like, you have that natural chemistry. But at the end of the day, it's this life that's important. And I know that I'm not saying that that's what you were focusing on, because I know you're just bringing it up like, oh yeah, because it was the parade, right? Was that where you saw it?
Was it the parade?
The
Yeah.
parade,
I saw a parade, and I saw Natalia and I as like little twin girls at the parade.
Yeah.
Nothing else. Like nothing really came from it other than it's just like, maybe it's just validation that this really tight feeling that you have with her, regardless of whether you're talking all the time now, is meaningful because of this past sisterhood that you actually really did have.
In my opinion, a past life regression at the end of the day is about the information that's brought forward and how you as an individual choose to apply that information. Now, for me, if you look at every response, it's like I think you even brought it before. It's almost like I go overboard to try to handle it responsibly. It's the application at the end of the day. And the recognition that when you look at someone, I think it can help you connect deeper with another place and almost get poetic in the sense of, I don't know where I know you from, but I know you. Whether you are an asshole or the love of my life, whatever it is, there's something beautiful to this tapestry we find ourselves in. Something that is so magnificent that we have crossed paths in one way or another. And whether you're here just to walk by me on the street or play a major role in my life, the fact that we have walked different streets in different bodies and somehow find ourselves here, there's something so beautiful about that. And what I ultimately think that this process should help you do is get in connection with something bigger than yourself. And that's whatever expression you want to use, whether it be God, the universe, the creator, multiple gods, whatever. I mean, I personally believe in God and that there is one God at the tippy top of everything. But that's how I feel. And I think that's the beauty of the universe that we find ourselves in, and the space we find ourselves in, is that everyone gets to choose their own path. I myself, when I went through the experience for the very first time, it brought so much more meaning to this one individual life, because I walked out of my first session a firm believer in past lives, and it made me want to live my life to a fuller extent. When you think almost the opposite would happen, that once I had this belief that we have multiple lives, that I'd be like, oh, okay, well, 1, 2, skip a few. I'll learn the lessons in the other one. But it made me want to seize the moment even more and make the most out of this life that I have now. And I think that is in service of something bigger, not doing it to bend a knee to God, but I believe that there's something more to all of this. And that if it can help connect you with something outside of yourself, that I don't think we'll ever be able to comprehend it or grasp it in this life, but I think there's a feeling that comes along with it. And I think that at the end of the day, however you get there and it helps you become a better person, I think that's all that matters.
Woo! Nailed it. Magic. That's the special sauce. That's it. Like, that is the magic. That's the beauty of it. I love it. So well said. So
Thank you.
perfect. How did you get involved in this work?
I dabbled in it for a little while first, going through the process myself a couple times. And there were a couple reasons why I got into it. One, I was just fascinated by it. I thought the process was so cool. So how cool would it be to be on the other side of things? And one of the things I love about my job is I get to know people on a level that most people never get to know them on, because not only do I get to sit down in one fell swoop and get their life story, but I also get to go through the process of them or with them when they experience their other lives and see, where have you been in other bodies? And there's something that is just very fulfilling for me to know that I get to know people on that level. And I think it helps me look at the world in a different way. I think it helps me bring an extra level of compassion that I may not have had prior to doing it, because everyone is just on their own path. While I'm trying to enhance my relationship with my own faith, that doesn't have to necessarily be spiritual or religious, whatever it may be, but my faith in something else, I also find myself letting go more and more every day, because every day that I think that I know what the hell is going on here, I realize that I don't, because there's something that comes along that shows me there's more here. There's more for you to explore. And I think life is going to be a never-ending exploration, especially when I'm working in this field. That because even in the time that I've been a practitioner, I've seen an evolution just in the way that information comes forward. And I don't think that that's because of me as a practitioner. I've heard this from other practitioners as well. It's like things change. There is an evolution taking place. And it's cool. Like it keeps you on your feet in a way, because it's never the same. And I love that. I love that when I woke up the morning of your session, I'm doing a session with Laura. That's all I know. I don't know what you're going to experience. I mean, I've seen your chart, so I may think I have an informed outlook on and who I think you may be to a certain extent, or what may come up, but I don't know. Like, I surrender to that unknown, because there's also something exhilarating about that. There's something exhilarating about going into your session not knowing, and that whatever comes up is going to come up. And no matter what comes up, I will look at the world in a slightly different, I don't want to say even through a different lens, but I'll look at the world slightly differently than I did prior to your session. And that may just be as simple as the conversation that I had with you, because I believe that every interaction enhances our worldview, whether or not the person's an asshole or the coolest person in the world. It enhances that tapestry. So how'd I get into the work? I answered that a few minutes ago and then went on.
That's all right. I love that answer. It's so good.
Thank you.
Do you feel like in Many Lives, Many Masters, Dr. Weiss was getting messages for himself? Do you feel like there's ever messages for yourself when you're doing these regressions? Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wild.
It's wild when they come out of nowhere, especially. It's quite remarkable. And
can you give us an example?
it was probably 5 years ago or so. I had said something to someone which I had a deep regret for, because I'm like, they were completely wrong, but wasn't my place to say anything. And in the middle of the session,
With a stranger.
with a stranger, yeah, someone I'm just meeting for the first time. When I say middle, I mean with a higher self, because yeah, that's the other part of the process. Is once we go through the past life portion, we bring forward your higher self, your subconscious, your superconscious, that deeper part of yourself that either resides inside of you or outside of you. We'll be able to deem that wherever it is, that location, once we're able to measure those things. So they said something, I mean, not verbatim, but just, you were right. That situation that happened with that person, you were right. They needed to hear that. And you needed to be the one to say it. But something else I do notice along those lines is that sometimes sessions, I'll say, are bundled with a theme, where I'll see 5 in a row where there is a similar theme. And in those moments, I take notice, because is there something being mirrored back to me right now?
Give us some examples of themes.
I mean, the ones that are being mirrored back to me.
Honestly, any. I just think people are so fascinated by this. Like you mentioned, the drowning piece, afraid of water. Like, what are some other things that come up?
Witch wound is a big one.
A witch wound. Yeah. Okay. So can you get specific about that?
It appears that we don't always find ourselves in the same body and the same gender.
Totally.
There are men who have witch wounds.
Sure.
And
so will you explain what a witch wound is to those
Sure.
that don't know?
So witch wound it's that fear of using whatever gift you may have. Something as simple as even public speaking, or, using herbs, whatever it is, things that witches were persecuted for in the past. Because there's that deep fear of, if I show myself, I'm going to be hunted down. Because I showed myself in another life, or because I told one person that I did this thing, then they told the authorities. The authorities came and hauled me off, and burn me at the stake.
I identify with this wound, just
Oh, yeah?
for the record. Remember I told you the past life regression, the first one that I did, that I was like speaking, and I was speaking like on a small platform. Like when I think about that, I was speaking about gods or spirituality. I was speaking about or math, something that was for a woman, which I was a woman in that life.
Mm-hmm.
I was not supposed to be speaking about. And then I got stabbed in the back. Who I have an idea of who it was in this life.
Yeah. Sorry about that. That's why I made up for it this time by it wasn't me. Or maybe it was, but I don't think you identified it as me. Not a bad joke. So like the witch wound is in that situation, for you seeing that in your first past life regression. Mm-hmm. Perfect example is the Woo Report. Because this is one of those things where you could have been killed in other lives for speaking out about those things. But the identification of seeing like, oh, I don't need to fear that. Because that was then, this is now. And then you have taken that information and put yourself out there in this way where you're now speaking about these things. So it's overcoming that fear that came up inside of you in one way or another. So that's how I see the witch wound appearing in this life. And it's for showing yourself whatever way that may be. And that could even be as simple as just speaking up about something because you're afraid that if I speak up about this thing, I'm going to be killed. Something that's just so, well, we would say to be inconsequential, but could mean everything to you. That's why I have this mentality where someone may cry at the sight of a toothpick being broken. It doesn't matter how ridiculous I think that is. It's real for them. There's a reason why they have that visceral emotional reaction to a toothpick breaking. So like that's a lot of what we uncover is why. Why do you have that reaction? Why does it affect you this much? So that's a common theme is the witch wound. The fear of being in power because of ways you may have abused power in other lives or what has happened as a result of you having power. Another one I see frequently is people who are afraid to make a lot of money because of something that happened. Again, there are patterns that I see, but they're always going to be the outliers. So in that circumstance, it's usually someone who made a lot of money and either lost it or had it taken from them. So there's that fear of, if I do this again, it's all going to be gone. So I mean, those are common themes, and
those are good.
Yeah.
So interesting. I want to just talk for a quick beat about filing cabinets of our minds or maybe of our current life. Okay. So this was a theme for my session. Something came up that I did in middle school that I've been keeping in this filing cabinet for a long time. And like, I've been berating myself about it for a long time. And it was interesting, of course, because the week prior to meeting with you, I had done some work in my own meditation to kind of finally release this. But I've been feeling really clear about it recently. And I know that what you were able to do kind of after we looked at past lives, you kind of brought up this moment that I had in middle school and released it, helped kind of move through, like do any final releasing of it. And that's like separate than the regression process, but what was that?
It's not something I do every time because it's circumstantial, but it's one of those things still, I wish that I could explain it to you. I wish that I could explain how going in and looking at something that you look at in your mind all the time anyways, and it's something as simple as like looking at it through, okay, I forgive you. I'm going to let you go. And somehow there is a weight that is lifted. And I don't understand it, but there is something about the process where looking at it and saying it out loud, and in this process, not saying you can't do it when you're just looking in the mirror in your regular life, but there's something about it when you're in that deep hypnotic space where it's like poof. You know, for me personally, it was my sense of anger, my very first session. And I felt like everything I had been carrying around anger-wise had been gone. Now, that didn't mean that the causes of it were gone, but it felt like the burden of it was emptied out. And then it was still up to me to keep it empty. I mean, that's been a process over the years where, for a long time I thought, oh no, it's good. I got rid of it. Don't need to look at it. But in the years later, I've seen, oh no, this is something that I think I will always have to look at in one form or another. It doesn't make me any better or worse than anyone else. It just is. It's a normal human emotion. I don't I'm on a journey of learning like everyone is. But there was something about that process that I walked away feeling so much lighter. And even for years before, I wanted to believe that it wasn't going to have this grip and hold over me, because my anger was very internalized.
And did you see a past life that helped you unlock that, or what did you see?
I saw a past life that related to fear of, it was a fear of failure. What I remember the most from that session was, up until that day, I always felt like everything I did, I failed at. Even if I succeeded, I felt like a failure. Even if I could look at a situation and say, I was successful, I felt like a failure. And I guess the simplest way to put it was, I was in charge of like a village or something like that. I had succeeded. I had stopped the opposition from pressing the proverbial button. But the problem was the button had already been pushed by the time I stopped them. So I guess it was like I had stopped them physically, but the button had already been pushed, and it led to the death of many people because I was too late. So even though I succeeded in stopping, the opposition, I still failed. Because I didn't do it quick enough. And once I saw that, that's why, I bring this up because I don't remember if that's where the anger was released from or if it was at some other point. But I do remember looking at every situation past that point for what it was. It was a success or a failure. If I succeeded, I succeeded. If I failed, I failed. I could look at it objectively. And if the success was that, I didn't need to feel like a failure. I could relish the win. I looked at that as something I prided myself upon after that anger was gone, being able to overcome that and not have it be a part of my life, which I think in return made me not want to look at things that made me angry, because I'm like, I don't need to look at, I'm above the anger, but not realizing that they were still making me angry anyways, but I just wasn't looking at it. So it was important for me to really acknowledge everything I was feeling and not feel like I was above it and superior to the emotion of anything. So.
And I think that's also a theme on this podcast, is to like feel your feelings, allow your feeling, like, because the filing cabinet is going to stay full unless you pull it out and sit with the moments in the filing cabinet and feel them or look at them, spin them around, see both sides.
And I think it goes even further, which is, if you don't look at the filing cabinet now, I believe you're going to have to look at it in other lives, because it's going to be things that are left unresolved. So.
Ooh, there it is.
Yeah?
There it is. Yes.
Yes.
That's it. I was like, why do I want to bring up the filing cabinet? But that's a thing. Yes, of course. You're going to have to, it's going to stay with you. It like feels like this small moment from middle school, speaking from my middle school experience. It feels like this small moment that like nobody else remembers but me. But for me, why is it so meaningful? And like, if I didn't look at it and process it with you, and am I going to go back and do something like that again with those people? No,
maybe.
We need to be done. Yeah. We need to move on.
Well, hopefully by doing that, you've lessened the chance of that happening again.
Yes.
By the way, I have tremendous respect for that moment that you had in middle school. My God, the integrity that you had. Okay, back to you, Laura. It's your show. Sorry.
No, that's all right. No, thank you. I appreciate that. It's funny because I told my girlfriends about it the other night, and I teed it up for them. I was like, so this moment, they're like, oh my God, what did you do?
Did you burn this school down?
They were literally like, they're like, Rachel goes, I thought you cut someone. I was like, what?
Yeah. Well, toothpick.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a toothpick moment. You know what? I'm going to say it. And I can decide whether or not I'm going to put it in or not later. But when I was in 7th grade, I witnessed 2 kids next to me cheating on a test. One of them wrote down the multiple choice answers and handed it to the other one. And I had studied a long time for that test, and I was horrified that they were cheating. Like, I was sweating because I'm sweating thinking about it, because I was like, this is wrong. They should not be cheating. And I left the class, and I was just like, did not know what to do. And I said to my friend, should I tell the teacher that I saw them do this? And she was like, yeah, you should. And so I went into the teacher's lounge, and I was like, I just saw this happen. And she was like, thank you for telling me. And then literally like two periods later, a friend of mine turns around in her seat and says, oh my gosh, this kid just told on these 2 kids for cheating. And I was like, oh, it was not him. It was not him who told. It was me that told. I could not let this other kid take the blame for it. But then I just like outed myself as being a tattletale. And whew, I have really thought about this moment for a long time. So silly.
Well, I mean, I just want to point out that, I mean, you kind of alluded to it right now, but when you told me that story, I think the most important part of it was the self-awareness that you had even said to me. You're like, I think I may have just also done it because I was upset that I had studied and they hadn't. But nothing wrong with that. But at least all these years later, you were honest about that. It's not like you were holding yourself up. So like through the self-righteousness of, oh, it was purely the right thing to do. No, you were honest. Like, I think it also may have just been because I was upset that I did the work and they didn't, which I think it doesn't take away from it. If anything, it just enhances the fact that you're able to have that level of self-awareness and look at yourself through that lens of, yeah, maybe that's why I did it. But I think that that's what's important, is for everyone to look at themselves impartially.
Yeah.
And be able to judge their actions and say, like, I may have thought that this was my motivation for it all along, but this is why. And it doesn't make it any better or worse. It is what it is. So I commend you for that, because
thank you.
It's hard to do that. So
it's funny. I was telling my like high school girlfriends that I was thinking about this moment. We talk on Marco Polo, and the girl that I went and told was like, what is this story? I was like, she doesn't even remember. Of course she doesn't remember. It's like one day in 7th grade. Like, she does not remember this. Like, and she was one of my best friends in 7th grade. So that just shows you how long I've been really holding on to this. But the reason why I'm sharing this is because if I have this moment from 7th grade that's in my filing cabinet, then like, how many moments do people have like this? And how many moments are they just like unconsciously like beating themselves up for this moment that they're not really looking at? And how good is it? How do we want to carry this filing cabinet to our next life? No, we don't. We don't want to. Let's empty it out. Let's empty out the karma. So anyway, if anyone wants to look at their filing cabinet, Daniel is a perfect person to start helping you do that.
Well, thank you.
Or you can just do it on your own. Daniel, thank you so much for doing this. This was amazing. You are brilliant, and I'm so happy that you're doing this work. It is so meaningful and helpful for people in this life and maybe beyond.
The level of integrity that you carry yourself with.
Thank you.
And I know that a lot of people can put a facade on when they're in this space and talking about these things, or just about anything in general. But what you see is what you get with Laura. And I'm sure your listeners see it. And
thank you, Daniel.
I think what you're doing here is great. And
thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you. And likewise.
Thank you for having me. Oh yeah, everyone go check me out at Timeless Spirituality and the pastliferegressionist.com, or on Instagram at the Past Life Regressionist, or my other show, the Past Life Regressionist, on New Reality TV. And Laura will be on Timeless Spirituality in the near future.
Yes. So fun. Thank you for listening to The Woo Report. For way more woo-woo, please follow and subscribe to The Woo Report podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you love to listen. Never miss an episode of The Woo Report by joining the community at thewooreportpodcast.com. Thank you for liking, sharing, rating, and loving on this little slice of magic. I am so, so grateful you are here. Bye.